All right, we've been mainly focusing on, especially last week and the beginning of this week, right triangles, right? So we were talking about right triangle trig, and so we could use the trig ratios to solve and find unknown stuff in a right triangle. Now, laws of sine and cosine are for triangles that aren't necessarily right triangles. Okay, so they're for the other types of triangles. Allison, would you shut the door for me, please? All right, now we're going to start off with laws of sine. Okay, so laws of sine, it's a little bit easier than laws of cosine. Okay, you'll like them better, except for one case. Okay, now let me go ahead and tell you the formula for laws of sine. It's over there to your left if you want to look at it. You've got laws of cosine and laws of sine. Okay, but laws of sine, what makes it easier is it's set up in just a three-part proportion. So you have A over sine of A equals B over sine of B equals C over sine of C. And notice how the numerators are all lower cases, which means they would be what part of my triangle? The lengths of the sides, okay? And then what all the uppercase letters are the angle. All right, and now notice, you see how that's a really easy pattern. I mean, so this is a formula that's not hard to memorize. Like laws of cosine is a pretty bad formula. But you notice what the side and the angle, these are the ones that are across from each other, aren't they? Okay, and that's one of the things that's going to tell me to use laws of sine is that the angle and the side that's opposite are going to be given to us. Now, the other way to look at that is you look at these three cases. Okay, it's for angle, side, angle. So that's where I'm given two angles and a side, or angle, angle, side. Okay, now in both cases, you're given two angles and a side, but what's the difference there? Do you remember that from geometry when you were talking about congruent triangles? Where's the side at? And, right, it's in between the two angles. So you called it the included side. And then this side would not be in between. Okay, now you have one more case for the laws of sine, but it's called the ambiguous case, and it is really, really bad. Okay, it's the side-side angle case. Okay, and so we're going to put an asterisk by it. And guys, we'll spend like 2 days just talking about this one case. That's how bad it is. Okay, and so here's the other way that I remember that it's pretty bad. I put this right there to help me remember that. Now, you'll figure that out in a second. All right, it's backwards. All right, now let's look at an example. Okay, yeah, somebody finally got it. All right, they still don't get it. Read it backwards. Okay, all right, now let's look at, and so, one thing about it, all right, y'all listen. All right, when we have two angles and a side, this is what I'm going to use as laws of sine, because one of the things you're going to have to differentiate is when do I use laws of sine or when do I use laws of cosine? When do I use which one? Okay, and so I'm going to use laws of sine in these three cases. Now, let's do an example here. Okay, and I'm going to see if we can just get by with one example of laws of sine, because it's pretty simple. We need to really spend more time on the laws of cosine. All right, we'll label my triangle here, ABC, so that kind of fits into my formula. All right, so let's say this angle is like 42, and this side's 10, and this side's 59. Okay, now, y'all see where we're given two angles and a side there? Okay, so would this one be angle, side, angle, or angle, angle, side? Not that it really matters, angle, side, angle, because the side is in between. So angle, angle, side would have been if the 10 would have been this side or this side. Okay, so you got angle, side, angle there. Now, one thing about these two cases right there, if you think about it, we don't really need trig to find this angle right here, do we? If we know two angles, then we should be able to find the third. All right, so y'all get your calculators. Let's find the third. All right, so do 59 and 42, and then 180 minus that. All right, nobody should really have any questions about how I did that. So this angle's 79. Okay, because what do we know about the three angles in a triangle? Right, sum is 180. Okay, now let's look and notice once I found that third side, I have an angle and the side opposite them. And so if I have that information on a triangle, I can find the other stuff. Okay, so let's set up and let's plug in or substitute in this formula. Who you need? Okay, all right, let's plug in. So we're going to do A over sine of A. Now, this would be side A, right? And then this would be side B. So we're trying to find side A and side B there. Okay, now let's plug into our formula. So we're going to do A over the sine of A. So A over sine of 42 degrees. Okay, now B over the sine of B. All right, so y'all tell me what the next ratio is going to say there. Right. No. Sine of 59. Okay. And now little c over the sine of big C. So we know that one, don't we? 10 over the sine of 79. Now, I'm going to shift my focus on this one right here. So why this one? You got both of them. Right. And Jake, you said it's going to solve the other two. Okay, so I'm going to solve A and B by using this ratio because I'm given both the side and the angle. So the way I can do this is I can take these two and cross multiply with this one. Okay, so y'all want to do like this one first? Okay, so if we do this one first, you just take that middle one and cover up and now cross multiply. All right, so let's see. Call out here what you're going to get when we cross multiply. Start with A. A times sine 79 equals, cross multiply the other ones, 10 times sine 42. Okay, let's say A times sine 79 equals 10 times sine 42. Okay, so now we're trying to find A, right? A is multiplying by this, so to isolate A, we're going to divide by sine 79. Okay, now you're going to throw all of that in the calculator. Okay, so watch me here. If you don't get the same thing I do, we'll talk with you. All right, like, no. Is that better? All right, no. There we go. All right, so 10 times sine 42 divided by sine 79. Okay, so about 6.8. Let's just go to like one decimal. Okay, there again, whatever your directions say is what you're going to round to. Probably what they would say would be the 10th place. Okay, now let's go back up and let's set up an equation to find the B now. Okay, so we got side A is about 6.8. All right, so now go back. We're going to use this one again, aren't we? Now, if we wanted to, we could put 6.8 right there and cross multiply, but what's maybe a problem? Oh, that wasn't B. Never mind. I'm sorry. 6.8 in for A, not B. That's not exact, is it? Right. You'd have to use all the decimal places in the calculator. Right. And so in this case, what you know that was 10 because they told us it was 10. All right. So now we cross multiplied with the A one to get the A. So now we're going to cross multiply with the B one. Okay. So we're going to get B times sine 79 equals 10 times sine 59. All right, wait, I'm sorry. What am I doing? B times sine 79. What's this to be? 10 times sine 59. Okay, now we're solving for B. What can I do there? Right. So you get B. All right, now we're just going to put in 10 times sine 59 divided by sine of 79. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so this one appears about 8.7. Okay, so that's laws of sine. I'm going to see if we can just get away with that one example for you. I mean, does this look pretty simple? Because they're proportions, and you're cross multiplying and finding sides. This is usually the easiest one to do here when we talk about laws of sine and cosine. Now, let me show you your calculator thing. All right, you remember I loaded that program on you yesterday? Let me show you how to use your program. Okay. Bless you. All right. Now, go to your program button. See it's beside apps. Okay. Hit program. All right. That should be the only one, ACT, and this is legal on the ACT. You can't use it. All right. You press enter. Now, that brings it to the home screen, and then you press enter again to run it. And it's a menu-driven program. Now, the thing about it is you can't do any calculations in the program. You can only run it off the menu. So if you want to do calculations, you have to quit out. You have to quit it. Okay. Now, we're going to use, and I really suggest here that you go on your own and explore it. It's a very, very good program. Got a lot of interesting information. Okay. All right, but we're going to use what's called the triangle solver. Okay, so we'll hit 4. Now, and we're going to tell it what was the given information that we had on this triangle. So let me go back. All right, what did we start off with given here? What? 42, the 10, and 59. So angle, side, angle. Okay, so I'm going to tell it angle, side, angle. Now, would the order matter? No, it wouldn't. Okay. Now, what about with angle, angle, side? It would, because you'd have to push in the angle that was away from the side, and then the angle that would be adjacent to the side, and then the side. Yes. Do what now? It doesn't have it on there. Okay. Now, so let's see. This was angle, side, angle. So you choose that first one. All right. Now, you tell it one of the angles. So I'm just going to say 42 first, and then hit enter. And then 10, and hit enter. And then 59, and hit enter. That's pretty nice, isn't it? And look what happens when it, bam, answers. Okay. Now, that's pretty sweet, isn't it? Okay. Now, so it's a pretty powerful program. Okay. And with great power comes great responsibility, as Spider-Man would say. Now, so here's the responsibility. If you have this program, if you use this program, and I will let you use this program on the test, you have to show the work. And you cannot show anything less than what I'm showing right here. Okay? Now, if you do not want to show the work, then you must surrender the program and I will delete it. Okay, so does anybody want to surrender the program? Okay, I didn't think so. Okay. Do what now? Well, I mean, maybe the only thing that you could probably skip would be the division step. Okay? But I mean, you've got to show all of that. All right? Now, let's go, and I'm going to switch over to go ahead and do with laws of cosine with you. Okay? So you're going to do fine with laws of sine. Now, laws of cosine is kind of a different story. It's a little bit more complicated. All right. All right. Now, you've got one of the formulas over there to your left. And really, it's 3 formulas, but all you need is one, because if you see a pattern, you can write the other 2. So, yeah, it's a lot more difficult, isn't it? Minus 2ab times cosine of c. Okay? And note that the angle is going to be over here. That's big C, that's little c. So remember when we say cosine or sine or tangent, the argument is always an angle. Okay? Now, this is the C one. So if I was looking for side C or angle C, I would use this law of cosines. Now, the other one is going to be with B and A. Okay, let's do the B one. Now, just follow the pattern. So if I say B squared on this side, then these two are going to be A squared plus C squared, the other two sides, right? Get the pattern. And instead of minus 2AB, like here, it'll be minus 2AC. And instead of cosine of C, it's going to be cosine of B. Y'all see the pattern in it? Yes. The one I'm looking for is, like, if I'm looking for angle C or side C, that's the one I'm using. So really, if you can look right here, look on the ends. Right. And so if I was looking for side B or angle B, I would use this one. All right, now let's see if you guys can give me the A version. So now this one would say A squared plus, no, I'm sorry, B squared plus C squared, I don't know who told me that, minus 2BC times cosine A. Okay. Now, really and truly, don't bog yourself down in memorizing the formula. It's over there. It's on your reference sheet. Okay. Now, when I use laws of cosine here, I'm going to use them for these two cases. Side, 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 which is the easiest to spot, or side, angle, side. And so again, that's one of the things that you're going to have to know about laws of sine and cosine. When do I use laws of sine, and when do I use laws of cosine? I got to know which ones to use. So you remember for laws of sine, we said angle, angle, side, angle, and side, side, angle. Those three cases. But for laws of cosine, I'm going to use these, side, 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 and side, angle, side. Okay? Now, side, 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 sort of the difficult one of the two. So we're going to do side, angle, side first. Okay? So let me give you a side, angle, side triangle, and let's solve it. All right, let's see. Let's try this one. All right, so let's see. I'm going to give you this side's 10, and this angle to be 42, and this side to be 12. Okay. All right, so we're missing these two angles and this side. Now, let's look at why laws of sine is not going to work. Okay. For laws of sine, you have to have the angle and a side that's across from it. So what, right here I got the angle, but I don't have the side that's across from it. Right here I have the sides, but I don't have the angles to go with it. See, I'll kind of see why laws of sine is going to be a dead end. Okay. Now, somebody said this in second period, and I almost got very angry with them. They said, use the Pythagorean Theorem. No, it's not a right triangle. Okay. So, yeah. And see, some people think that because they're so driven by the Pythagorean Theorem, they think the Pythagorean Theorem is the solution for world peace. Okay? No, it is not a right triangle. Now, these two angles might be right angles because we don't know. Okay? But as far as we know, that is not a right triangle. You cannot use the Pythagorean Theorem. Okay? So, well, it just might work out. You never know. Okay? We can't go by what they look like. One of them could be right. Okay? So if one of them was a right angle, it would be a right triangle. Now, so let's use, since I got side, angle, side, we're going to use laws of cosine. Now, this is side, angle, side, and you have to remember sort of an order to follow. What you're going to do first is find the third side. Okay, because you're not going to be able to find an angle yet. All right, so the third side would be the B side, wouldn't it? Now, it's going to help if you go ahead and label the other sides. This one would be the A side and then the C side. So since I'm looking for the B side, I would want to use the laws of cosine that started with b squared. All right, does that make sense? If I'm missing b, then I'm going to use the b squared version of the formula. So I'll get b squared equals a squared plus c squared minus 2ac times cosine b. There again, don't worry about memorizing it. By the time you do about, 5 or so problems of this, it'll click and you'll have it memorized. Okay. Now, we're going to fill in this formula and we're going to solve for b. Okay, so we don't know what b is, so we just put b squared. Now we're going to fill in the rest of this. All right, so a squared, all right, 12 squared would be 144. All right, c squared would be 100. All right, minus 2 times 12 times 10. Okay, don't do any calculating. Your calculator's going to do all that in a second. Times the cosine. Now, when it says b right here, it means angle b, right? And so that would be 42 degrees. Now, I want you to notice, you don't know what this is, but you've got everything given over here, don't you? So all you got to do is take all this and just throw it all in the calculator. Okay? Let the calculator do all the work in the simplifying there. Okay? All right. So big long string in your calculator. And your calculator knows to multiply before to add and subtract. Okay? It knows the order of operations. It's okay. 144 plus 100 minus 2 times 12 times 10 times the cosine of 42. Okay, you should get 65 point something. Okay, now that's not going to be side b, but instead that is b squared. So if that's b squared, all we have to do is take the square root of that. Okay, so square root, and when that square root is 65.6, the square root of all of it, so we use answer, right? Okay, so you should get about 8.1. Now, if you're not getting that, bring your calculator up here and let me look. I'd come to you, but then I'd have to like pause and take my microphone off. All right, seriously, if anybody doesn't get this, let me know. Let me look at it with you. Okay, so you just throw all this in, and because it's b squared, you just take the square root of what you get there. That's it. That's right, 8.1. Okay, what'd you get? You got to take the square root of it because that's b squared. Okay. All right. Now, everybody getting 8.1 there? Okay. Take the square root of it. Okay. Now, and you could do the square root. I could have done the square root in that step right there, couldn't I? Square root, and then just punch it all in after the square root and close the double parenthesis. Okay. Now, all right, we've got b right here is about 8.1. So what we could do now is to continue to use laws of cosine to find one of the two missing angles. Now, I have a suggestion that notice, since we've got the side that's opposite of the angle now, what could we do instead of continue laws of cosine? Laws of sine. All right, so y'all want to do some more laws of cosine or laws of sine? Sine, because they're much easier, aren't they? Now, you have a little bit of restriction when you do that. And you can, so this, I'm going to use laws of sine for the rest of it. So use law of sines. Okay. Now, laws of sine can get you in trouble a lot of times with bigger obtuse angles. And the idea is you think about on your unit circle, okay? Y'all think. In the first quadrant, all the angles go from 0 to 90, don't they? In the second quadrant, they go from 90 to 180. And what some of the values in the second quadrant are negative, aren't they? So we want to try to stay in the first quadrant. So what I'm saying here is we're going to use laws of sine to find the smaller angle. Okay? The problem that you get into is laws of sine will have a difficult time with obtuse angles. Okay? And it's all about the second quadrant some of your ordered pairs in the second quadrant are negative. So if you always find the smaller angle, that's the safe bet. Now, 90% of the time, it doesn't matter, okay? But every once in a while, you get one where you have an obtuse angle and it's wrong, okay? And don't really worry about the how or the why, but find the smaller angle first, okay? And that's going to be true. If we just remember to always do that, we'll do that. Now, here's the question, though, and this is a pretty good, legit question. How do I know which one is smaller? Is A or C smaller? Well, this comes back to a theorem in geometry. The smallest angle will always be opposite of the smallest side. Okay, so it would be C. Because if 10 is the smallest side, then 10 would be the smallest angle. Now, here's the thing. If you use laws of cosine, then you don't have to worry about that. Okay, but if you use laws of sine, you have to find the smaller angle. So I'm definitely going to use laws of sine here, though. Now, I'm not going to fill out the whole formula for laws of sine, because if I find angle C, I should be able to use these two angles to find the third very easily, right? Okay, so we're going to find angle C. So we're going to have to set up the C ratio, because that's what I'm looking for. So I'm not going to just fill it in. The C ratio would say 10 over sine of C. All right, are y'all following me there? You kind of looking a little dazed, because you have an A and a B and a C ratio, right? The C is what we want, so the C is the one's what we're going to use. Now, would we use the B ratio or the A ratio to find it? Because you got both of them. Now, we're going to be real careful right here, though. I'm going to put it's about 8.1 over the sine of 42. Okay. Now, so let's see. How do we do laws of sine? We just cross multiply. Now, notice what's missing, though. This is what right here? An angle. So somewhere along the line, we're going to be using inverse. Okay. Now, let's cross multiply. We'll do 10 times sine 40. Let me do it over here. I'm sorry. We got more room. Okay. So here we go. Let's do 10 times sine 42 equals 8.1 times sine of C. Okay. Now, so you guys are saying that we're going to have to use inverse right here because we're finding an angle. Now, before we use inverse, we need to get rid of 8.1, don't we? Okay. So we're going to divide both sides by 8.1, but here's where we got to be really careful about using laws of sine now. That was not exactly 8.1. Right. You got to keep it in your calculator. So you can use answer or you can paste it. So we'll punch in 10. Now, am I going to hit inverse sine right here? Because we know what that angle is. So 10 times sine of 42 divided by, now, not 8.1, but answer all those decimal places. All right. So now I'm getting about 0.83. It really doesn't matter how many decimal places you go out to because you're going to use what's on the calculator anyway. All right. And this is equal to sine of C. All right. So now, what am I going to do now that I'm looking for the angle of this number? Right. You're going to use the inverse sine. Now, when we use inverse sine, here again, it's not going to be 0.83. It's going to be all of those. Right. Answer. Okay. Or you could paste it down. All right. So now we're going to get C is about 55.7. Okay. And now that would be in degrees because it's an angle. Okay. Let me write it in my triangle now. So this one's 55.7 degrees. Okay. Now you see what we don't need laws of sine or cosine to find angle A here, do we? Yeah. So we do inverse of this 0.83 right here, or inverse sine of that. So now we're going to add what? These two together, subtract it from 180. So I'm going to say what's in the calculator plus 42 and then subtract that from 180. So the other angle is about 82.3 degrees. Now, in this triangle, it would not have hurt if you would have found angle A right there because it's not obtuse. Okay, but the reason why you're going to find the smaller angle is with laws of sine, you're going to have issues with obtuse angles. Okay, and so that's why I told you to find the smaller angle, because this one was guaranteed to be, this one was guaranteed to be acute, wouldn't it? Because in a triangle, you can have only one angle that would be obtuse, right? So if there was an obtuse angle, it would have had to been across from 12 because it was the biggest side. Okay? You have issues when it comes to law of sines and obtuse angles. So that's why we say find the smaller of the angle first. And the ones in your textbook that you do, you don't ever run into that problem. But you will if you take college trig. Okay, if you take it in college, you'll have to do it that way. Now, all right, that's side angle side. All right, and let's point this out. We were given this, right? I meant to say this in the beginning. All right. How am I going to tell the difference between side angle side and side angle? Right? The angle here is what? In between. So side angle, the angle given would have been one of those two angles. Okay. All right. And see, that's going to be the bad one, remember? All right. So it wasn't that one. No. So remember, we spent like 2 days just talking about that one case. Okay. Now, let's do side now. Okay. So side is another law of cosines triangle. When you get to doing these aren't hard. They take a lot of work, though. Okay. And probably what we're looking at when we have this test is it's going to be like a 1.5 day test. Okay. All right. Now, no. It was either grade the test or go to Olive Garden. So I went to Olive Garden. All right. Now. All right. Now, this one is clearly here what? Side. It's very easy to see. Okay. Now, it's very similar to the other one where you don't have an angle across from any of the given sides, do you? So laws of sine don't work. Okay. Now, once we find an angle, though, we can start using laws of sine. All right. But what we're going to do to be safe, okay, is we're always going to do this. We're going to try to find the smaller angles first. Okay. So, and really, 95% of the time, you don't have to do this, and it's not going to matter. But every once in a while, there again, when you start talking about obtuse angles and laws of sine, yeah, it just doesn't work out sometimes. Now, so let's see, the smaller angle would be A. Okay, so I'm going to use the A version. So it would be A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC times cosine A. So you knew it like as good as I did, right? No. Okay. But you're going to know to use this formula, though. Because you look at your notes or look at the yellow sheet that I gave you with all the formulas. It's on there. Okay. Yeah, and plus I always leave those up for you to look at over there. Okay. Now you'll use it later on. Okay. Now let's fill this in, and let me label my sides here. This one's the A. This one's the B. This one's the C. Okay. So A squared here, that's going to give me 25. All right, B squared is going to be 64. C squared is going to be 100. All right, minus 2 times 8 times 5. Well, wait a minute. Times 10, I'm sorry. Times cosine, and then this is what's missing, right? So here again, if we're missing an angle, the last step that I'm going to be doing is going to be the inverse cosine. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is just clean all of this up right here. especially all this stuff. Okay, so 64 and 100 would be 164. So remember last time we just threw it all in the calculator? We can't do that because we don't know what that angle is. Okay, so this is 164. And I'm going to do my multiplication right here. So 2 times 8 times 10, that would be 16 times 10 would be 160. Okay, times cosine of A. Now I'm going to caution you about something. Most people are going to say, okay, well, this is just going to be 4, but you can't do that. Okay? And see, most people, you wanted to do that, didn't you? You cannot subtract this. Yeah. So somebody figure out why. Right. What's it do? It's multiplying. And when I do the order of operations, I have to multiply before I can subtract. That's why. Okay. Now, keep in mind the big goal here, what we're trying to do is get this isolated, right? I want to isolate this. Okay. So what you're going to do is just get rid of those other numbers. Okay. So we're going to get rid of the 164 first. So we're not going to set it equal to 0. We're going to take this and subtract it over here. It's going to be negative, but don't worry about it. Okay. So 25 minus 164 is going to give me negative 139. All right. Now over here, this is going to leave me with negative 160 times cosine A. Okay. Now, some people are going to mess up here because they're going to think to add 160 on both sides. It's multiplying, so you'd have to divide. Okay. Now, I'm going to divide it in my calculator. And notice, I'm not going to worry about punching in the negatives. It's just going to be positive. So 139 over 160 is going to give me a decimal. So you got about point. And I'm not going to write all the decimals here. I don't have to because ultimately I'm just going to use what's in the calculator anyway. Yeah. Okay. So now I can finally do what I was talking about in the beginning. I can take what now on this? The inverse cosine. Okay. So we do inverse cosine. Now, not of 0.87, but right there. Yeah, answer. Okay. Yeah, 29.7 degrees, about. Okay, let me write it my triangle up here. So we got 29.7 degrees. Now, I'm going to do this to remind myself it wasn't exact. Okay. All right. We all okay right here? Usually usually the toughest one is side, side, side. Okay. Now, and it's this is a lot of work to solve this one. Now, we could probably find in the next smallest angle would be angle B, right? Would be the next to the smallest angle. So we could use the B squared version of law of cosines. Or now that we've got a side and an angle that's opposite, we can use law of sines. So that's one thing about laws of cosine. When you solve with a triangle, you only have to use it one time, and then laws of sine take over. But you kind of have to deal with the smaller angles before you get the larger angles. Okay, so now let's do laws of sine here. Well, this is sad. I'm out of paper. All right, so let's see. Now, the smaller angle out of these two, I think we already said it, but this, what is it? B. Okay, so let's find angle B. So let's use our laws of sine ratios. Okay, so right, 8 over sine of B equals, now I can't use the C one because I don't know the angle, so I gotta use this one. All right, 5, right? 5 over sine of 29.7. Now, right, I'm gonna write it down like that, but we'll do like you said, we're gonna use answer when we calculate it, or copy and paste. Okay, now this one we can cross multiply, so we get 8 times sine of 29.7 equals 5 times sine of B. Right now we're looking for angle B. Let's figure out what we're going to do. If we're finding an angle, we're going to have to use inverse again. but we're going to get rid of the 5 first. Okay, so let's get rid of the 5. All right, so now let's type all this in. 8 times the sine. Now, not 29.7. Answer. Okay, and then divided by 5. So about 0.79 something. Okay, it doesn't really matter what I round to right there, because on my next step I'm going to use what's in the calculator. Okay, so now what? Inverse sine of that, right? Or not that, but this. Yeah, so inverse sine of that. So let's see, we get B is about 52.4 degrees. Now, once we find this one, the third one should be automatic. Okay. So now, watch how we find the third one, though, because we want to keep all the decimals, don't we? So we're going to say answer for that one plus, now, not 29.7, but that, right? Now, here's the thing. If you have like an 83 or a scientific calculator, you would have to take that and store it in the memory of the calculator. But in the new operating system, is just bam, paste it down, right? I've showed all that before, right? You just go up there and you highlight it and you hit enter and it pastes it down there, like copy and paste. All right, so you get that. Now that's not the other angle, is it? No, it didn't. That's just these two. You got to subtract it from 180. Okay, so 180 minus answer, so about 97.9 degrees there for my third angle. And now let's check that geometry idea that the longest side is opposite of the longest or the biggest angle. So this is the biggest angle, isn't it? And is that the biggest side? Yeah. Okay. And what this is the smallest angle or the smallest side, and now that's the smallest angle. Okay. Now let's recap this, and you can tell I'm videoing this obviously for 4th period, but when you do your problems, pull up the video from the email. I'm gonna put on YouTube for you, and when you get a side one, play the video and work yours out alongside it. Okay, and that really helps. Now, let's see what we're going to do though. We're going to have to figure out, all right, well, when do I use laws of sine? Okay, when do I use laws of cosine? Okay, how am I going to tell which ones to use? All right, laws of sine, what were the 3 cases? All right, angle, side, angle. All right, and angle, angle, side. And the bad one, side, side, angle. Remember, don't like him. All right, laws of cosine, side, 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 angle, side. And one thing about laws of cosine and laws of sine, one thing again you can look at, if you have the angle and the side that's opposite, you can use laws of sine. And remember what we said about laws of cosine? When you solve a triangle, you only have to use it one time, and after you used it once, then you can go back to laws of sine. Okay, but there again, you got to keep those decimal places in your calculator. Now, let me give you something here, and what we'll try to do is just look at the ones that I'm going to give you. All right. Let's look at this one. All right. You have 2 angles and a side, right? Okay. So it's either angle, angle, side, or angle, side, angle. I'm not sure because I haven't drawn it. All right. But either way, what are you going to use there? Laws of sine or cosine? Laws of sine. All right, let's get this one. 2 angles and a side again. Laws of sine. All right. Now look at this one. All 3 of these, they're all sides. So it'll be side, side, side. So I'd use laws of cosine. Now this one's 2 sides and an angle. So it could be side, side, angle, or side, angle, side. So I think what we need to do on that one is to draw it first, right? Okay, so I'm just draw a little sketch. All right, so you got little a is 10, little c is 8, big B is 100. So is it side angle side or side side angle? Side angle side, because the angle's in between. So that means we would use laws of cosine. Okay, so you got, and you're not going to do this case for a while anyway, okay? But it's side angle side, so it's going to be laws of cosine. All right, let's keep going. We're going to try to do all of these real quick just to say what we're going to use. All right, now this looks like two sides at an angle again, doesn't it? Okay, it's going to be laws of cosine because it's not going to be side side angle yet. Okay, all right, this one's got all three sides, so laws of cosine. All right, this one's got two angles and a side, so laws of sine. Same thing here, two angles and a side, so laws of sine. Okay, now let's look. Let's do one of these on the calculator real quick, okay? With our program. All right. Did y'all get the program okay? Kind of understand how to use it? So one thing about it is you have to know the four one. I don't know. I was going to leave that up to y'all. You want to do this like the first one? Okay. So this one would be, I think it would be angle, angle, side, wouldn't it? Okay. So if you did angle, angle, side, I don't know. I got to draw that and see. A, B, C. This would be little c. Oh, that would be actually angle, side, angle. Okay. So with angle, side, angle, which angle that you put in first doesn't matter. But angle, angle, side, it does. Yeah, you definitely need to draw. Okay. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to see how to really work with it. You got to draw. I don't see how you could do. So let's punch in real quick. So you get angle. You got 38 for one. The side is 15, and then the other angle is 63. Okay. So I would suggest before you even work the problem, write out what the answers are going to be so you know if you're doing it right or not. Okay. Because if you're getting it wrong, don't keep trying to find the other stuff. Okay. Yeah. All right. Like I said, I'll put this on YouTube for you. Okay. So you can work the problems along with these. All right. You're not getting my email?